Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to my 20-second Python 3 tutorial. Now today I'm going to be showing you guys about file input and output. And pretty much what that is saving information to a file or reading it from a file. And the reason why this is so important is because when you create a program and you have different information that is stored in the program, pretty much what's happening is all the variables and objects and stuff like that are being stored in the RAM, which is kind of like the short-term memory of your computer. So whenever you exit the program, that gets erased. And the way to get around that is to use file input and output. And what you can do is save your whichever certain information that you want. You can save that to a file which is stored on the hard drive, so it doesn't get erased when you close your program, and then you can access it at a later time in a different program. So the way that you do that is you first have to create a file object, and from there you can choose to read from the file or write to it. So alright, so the first thing we got to do is create a file object. So let's do that. I'm going to name my file object outFile because I'm going to be writing to it this time. And then the assignment operator, and we're going to use a method called open. This open method creates a file object. It lets Python know that you are creating a file object. And you can see here, these are the parameters that it has. And this first one, file, is the only one that's necessary. The other ones all have default values. And we're actually not going to be worrying about these last two, buffering and encoding. Now we have to provide file, and then mode is important as well. So let's go ahead and create a file. This is I'm just gonna name mine output, and I'm gonna make it a text file. And you do have to include the dot and then whatever file type. For now we can just work with text, and that will be perfectly alright. And this mode, you can choose. There's a bunch of different types of modes. Well, there's reading, which is this R, writing, which is W, which is what we're going to use, and then appending as well, and that's an A. And that's if you have already written to a file and you want to add stuff to it or append stuff. That's why it's called appending. It's pretty basic, really easy to remember. So we're going to use a W because that's for writing. We're also going to put a T on the end, and what that is telling Python is that you are writing in text mode. There's also binary mode and different modes like that. But for right now, we're only going to be writing in text mode because we're just going to be writing text to the file. So there is the method, and if we hit enter, we've now created a file object. As you can see right here, it's actually a text IO wrapper, which is the name of the file class. So now let's go ahead and write to this file. And the way that you do that is a method called write. It's pretty easy to remember. And pretty much what you do is in the parentheses as your parameter, you just put in whatever you want to write. So I can be like, the knights who say ni. Alright? And so I wrote that. And then it also, when you do this in Python shell, it'll give you a number, which is how many characters this is. It won't output that if you're in a program. If this is done in a program and you just run it, this won't be outputted. Then what we can also do is we can write some more stuff. And actually, one thing you have to be careful about is if I do it like this, if I just put in some text, this would append it right onto this that I wrote earlier. It does not automatically insert a new line, so you'd have to do that automatically. So make sure if you want it to be on a new line, you have to put this /n, which is the new line sequence. And I can even put in another one right here and some more text, and then hit enter, and we wrote some more, and you can see it gives us the character count. And now let's say I'm done writing to this file. I don't want to write anything else to it. I can go outFile.close. Make sure you close it when you're done with it, because if you don't, you won't be able to delete the file later. It'll still be open. It'll still be using RAM. So just make sure that you close the file when you're done with it. And now what we can do is we can actually go ahead and look at this file, because it's a physical file, and it has text in it that you can look at. So let's go ahead, and if you go into your Python folder, which I've got open over here, it should be in your C drive. If you go into that, you can find it. It's just called output. So if you go ahead and open that up, you can see we got the text that we wrote. The nights you say knee, some text, some more text. We wrote that, and now it's there. And even if I restart Python shell, and if I typed an out file, it would be like, I don't know what out file is, but this output, text file, text document is still there. So again, it's saved on the hard drive, not the RAM. And now let me show you how to read from files. And that's very, very similar to writing from the files. So let's create the object, and I'm going to name it inFile this time because I'm reading it in. And go ahead and use that open method again. And make sure that you put the correct file name. And it has to be, when you're reading, it has to be a file that exists in the search directory of Python search directory. Because if it doesn't, let's say I did like outpa.txt, and then I wanted to do it in reading, this R, remember R is for reading mode, and then the T for text again. If I did this, it can't find it. Now if I had done this and I had done WT, it would just create that text document. But as it is, it won't do that. So make sure you spell it right, make sure it's in the search directory. And now since I spelled it right, it doesn't give me an error. So now what you do to read from the file is infile.read. It's pretty much just like outfile.write. Very easy. And you can see it'll read it. Now it'll read it with the new line characters because this is just returning it, and it's not using the print function. And so to do that, you would have to do print infile.read. Now this won't actually work. You can see that it gives me this blank. It gives me nothing, and the reason it gave me nothing is because it had actually already read it. And there's an imaginary cursor when you use file input and output. There's this imaginary cursor that moves. So when you read it, when you first open it, it's at the beginning of the file. But when you use the read method, it'll move this imaginary cursor to the end of the file. So after this line up here, it was at the end of the file. And then when I tried using it again, it had nothing left to read. And there's actually a way to move the cursor back, and I will show you that in my next tutorial. But for now, what I can do is I can just close this real quick and then open it up again. And so what I can do is something like text equals infile.read, and now this up here is saved in the text variable. And I can print text, and there you go. That is exactly what this output was. You can see nights say knee, some text, some more text, and that's what's stored in here. So now that's pretty much all that I have to show you in this tutorial about file input and output. So remember, let's make sure that we close that file again. We don't want to leave it open. And so yeah, I showed you how to create a file object using this open method. Make sure you provide the file name, because that's important, and make sure not to forget the file type as well. You need that to create a file. And then there's also writing mode, which is this W, and reading mode, which is the R. It's pretty easy to remember. And then there's the text mode. There's also different modes, but you don't need that just to write, just to output strings into the file. And so again, writing, all you have to do is the object name dot write, and then whatever you want to write. And then reading, it's just dot read. But remember, when you read it, it'll return the string, just a literal string, including the new line characters. So it'll give you the /n. So if you want to output that nicely, you have to do the print and infile.read. And again, I will show you in my next tutorial how to move the cursor back, so you can go back to the beginning and you don't have to close it and then open it up again. But for now, that's all I've got for you in this tutorial, and I'll see you next time.